Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you from livestream.travel in Honolulu. And with me today is Paul Hudson. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. And Paul is an advocate, he's an attorney, and he is head of Flyers Rights, an organization based in Washington that has helped airline passengers in the United States and around the world to make their voice heard. Paul is also has been involved in the issue we all heard about the Boeing Max, what caused two airlines to crash, one in Indonesia and then one in Ethiopia. And Paul has been following and actually been very active in the development of making the Boeing Max a more safer plane. Where does this stand, Paul?
Well, where it stands is that the FAA has apparently decided they're going to unground the MAX, and we expect the decision to formally come out later this month. But unfortunately, they're asking the public to take their word for it that the plane is now safe, and the word, of course, of Boeing. And while they've talked about transparency, they are unwilling to release any of the technical details of the fix. That is especially the software that was the cause of the two crashes, so that it could be viewed and it could be vetted by outside experts. They've also prevented any release of the actual protocols for the tests, the flight tests and other tests that the FAA is presumably doing and has done. And finally, they're unwilling to release the actual results of the tests. And it's also up in the air as to whether and when pilots will actually be trained to operate the MAX safely if the same kind of conditions occur that resulted in those horrible crashes that killed 346 people.
Wow. And this is going on for quite some time. And I think there are different steps before we even got into pointing the finger at Boeing. The fingers were pointed at pilots and at other issues. Can you give us like a rough summary how this all developed? I think it kind of became a very known subject after the second crash in Ethiopia, where Ethiopian Airlines, what is a member of the Star Alliance, reached out and said, no, wait a minute, it's not all us, it's not our pilots. And I can tell you on the sideline, I went to Ethiopia just within a couple of weeks after this crash, and I visited the training facilities. They're really state-of-the-art facilities Ethiopian Airlines has, and the airline is not only training their own pilot, it's a commercial training facility where they train pilots from all over the world, specifically in Africa. And as far as I know, it's the only such training center in Africa. So Ethiopian Airlines is leading in Africa, at least, when it comes to operating a safe airline. And they were really quite outspoken, I think, what triggered all these various investigations after the second crash. Isn't that how it developed, Paul?
Well, after the second crash, within a few days, the MAX was grounded by the FAA, and it was grounded all over the world. Other countries actually grounded it first. The first crash occurred, that second crash you referred to occurred in March of 2019. The first one, however, was October 29th of 2018. And that was in Indonesia. And in that crash, I happened to serve on the FAA's main safety advisory committee, called the Aviation Rulemaking Advisory Committee. And I know the Boeing people for many years, and I immediately asked them, why haven't you grounded the plane? And this is after the October crash. And the answer was, well, it's under investigation. And then they said, well, we're going to fix it in January of 19. Nothing ever happened. And then the plane was reassured that it was safe to fly, and we had the second crash. Same exact scenario. The software basically took over from the pilot after a malfunction in one of the sensors, caused the plane to go up and down. Pilots could not control it. And after about 20 iterations, in both cases, it crashed, in one case into the ground, the other case into the ocean, killing everyone. This system was allowed to be put in. It was at least partially hidden from the FAA, particularly its characteristics that took over from the pilots and made it pretty much impossible for them to control the aircraft. But beyond that, it was due to a design flaw in the plane. The 737 was initially approved in 1967. And if you've ever noticed, there's very few things that have been continually upgraded without new things being put into them since 1967, whether it's a car, whether it's a plane. But the 737 has been so reliable and such a workhorse and such a success financially for Boeing and the airlines that each time they would do a reiteration, they would stretch the plane, they would add things to it, but they didn't want to actually change the plane to where they had to actually certify it as a new plane, because that would cost money. It would require more regulation, more approvals. And in the case of the MAX, which is the fourth or fifth iteration of this plane, they were under pressure to get the plane out to compete with an Airbus 320neo. As a result, the plane was dangerous from the get-go, and the problems now have been so well noticed that it's taken all this time in order for it to be at a point where it could be ungrounded. This is really unprecedented. And we actually asked for, through a Freedom of Information request back in December of last year, for the technical details. I had meetings with the people at the top of the FAA that deal with safety, their associate administrator for safety. And I asked them, well, why is it that the plane cannot operate without this MCAS software that takes over when there's a sensor malfunction? And his answer was, well, that's a $64 question. In other words, they didn't know. And now we come down well over a year later, and it turns out the fix is that when a malfunction occurs, the software will shut off, the autopilot will shut off, and the pilot will then have to operate the plane completely manually, which particularly in many foreign airlines, they're not used to doing that. And besides that, these planes are certified to fly over oceans. They can fly for 4, 5, 6 hours. And I've actually flown this plane over the North Atlantic from New York to Ireland. I've flown it from Florida to Panama City, well into South America. And if an engine goes out or a malfunction occurs on one of these long distance flights, a pilot would have to operate the plane for hours on a total manual basis. Now, as far as I can see, no testing like that has been done. The most they've tested the plane is for 2 or 3 hours in a variety of ways in flight. And these emergency conditions are too dangerous to operate in actual planes. You have to do them in a simulator. It's called a full motion simulator. There's only a few of those in the world. And pilots are going to be apparently asked to operate the plane without training. The last proposal of Boeing only called for a 55-minute iPad tutorial. And the top pilots in the world testified before Congress saying that you have to have what they call muscle memory. In other words, your reaction has to be almost instantaneous, within at most a matter of seconds, not only for this condition, but for approximately 100 other emergency conditions. And they're not able to do that, especially now with most of the planes being highly automated and the pilots being undertrained in terms of these emergency conditions. And I'm afraid there's going to be more accidents if they don't take care of this. There's not much doubt that they've made the plane safer, but I don't think it's been made safe. We're in litigation with the FAA in court, and I expect that it's going to eventually go to the appeal court to be decided whether they have to release the details of the fixes for outside evaluation or not.
Wow, that is really an incredible story, Paul. And so we're not out of the woods yet. We don't know whether this aircraft would really ever hit the markets again. And this was one of the best-selling aircrafts Boeing had, wasn't it, at the time? At least from the order perspective.
Yeah, their order book had 4,000 or 5,000 orders.
Are they still standing? I'm sorry.
Hundreds have been canceled. It's not clear that how many of those are actually going to happen. And once again, it's ultimately up to the passenger, because it's not up to Boeing or the FAA. It's not even up to the airlines. If people won't fly the plane, and surveys have indicated that somewhere between 20% and 70% of the people say they won't fly the plane.
Right.
At least in the first few years. And we've had many calls on this when the plane was after the second crash, when it looked like it was going to be ungrounded. And the number one question was, how do we avoid that bad plane?
Right. And it's a fascinating story, and I'm sure we're going to hear more. You've been working on this now for 2 years, I believe you said, when it started in 2000, and you said October 2017, after the
I was 18
crash.
actually.
And 18, yes. Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Paul. I wanted to just let everyone know, if you need help from Flyers Rights, they have a toll-free number. I'm seeing it here on the website. It's 877-359-3776, or it's hard to see here. 877, is it Flyer 76?
That's Flyers 6.
Flyer 6, okay.
ERS 6. You can also email us at hotline@flyersrights.org.
Perfect. And you find all of this at flyersrights.org, as Paul said, and great organization. You can join it right from the homepage and see all this work, incredible work Paul has been doing over the years. Thank you so much, Paul, and we hope we have you back in one of our podcasts. I know you frequently contribute to eTurbo News, and we thank you for this. All your articles so far have been very much seen by our audience of travel professionals all over the world, and they love it. So keep up the good work and stay safe.
And you do the same.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Take care. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, sorry, I'm not in the business suit here, but
no. If we do it on podcast, they won't see you anyway, so that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. It'll be interesting.
Okay.
All
so
right.
I'll hopefully I'll be in Hawaii in November.
Okay. Well, if you do, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of here. I haven't had the courage yet. So.
Yeah. Stay safe.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Again, Paul, thank you so much for your insight. This was a great session, and I will definitely look for an airline where I'm obligated to wear a mask and where this is enforced. I know, to be fair, United, American, and Delta, from what I know at eTurbo News and reading their press releases, are enforcing the policy, but as you said, there are some they don't. So we all make a choice as consumers, and definitely my choice is clear. I want to be as safe as possible when getting on an airliner. Again, Paul, thank you so much, and thank you for listening, everyone. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz from livestream.travel. If you wanted to be on a future show or you have questions or comments, just simply go to livestream.travel and click on contact, and we'll be happy to talk to you and respond. Aloha from Hawaii.